have the minutes coming out from Sam, and so that should do us just fine. Is everybody ready to get rolling? All right. I suppose everybody can hear me just fine. I'm Ed Gephardt, Chief of Police, City of Fishers. I want to thank you for taking time, on your own on a Monday night to click on here. I know things seem like they went real fast for portions in the neighborhood there. I do apologize for not being um, more thorough and fully engaging the HOA in the neighborhood. I didn't, we had community meetings where it was open. I'm not sure about those invites or how that happened, but we felt like when we met with the mosque initially that we had covered down on getting the neighborhood notified, but again, not the HOA. So I'll take responsibility for the lack of communication and how fast it seems on this side of it. We've actually been in this conversation for a couple of years now. This is not a new problem for the police department nor the city. We've been working with several residents in and around the mosque, up and into your neighborhood, and then across the street in the sunblessed areas as cars continue to flood and park everywhere. We have tried just about everything on the police side to get people into check to not park in front of houses and clog streetways or block driveways. We have not been able to gain compliance. We've ticketed, we've posted no parking, we've added patrols, we've done a number of things, including meet with and work with the mosque. They as well have been good neighbors and tried to remedy the situation by hiring their own security to engage. They have entered an agreement to park all of their patrons over at Fisher's Launch back outside the trail side. So they just have to walk up through the trail and then they can be over into the mosque um, so they can go to service, especially on those Fridays. And that has not worked. And one of the things or the reasons that's not worked is a lot of the people that attend from out of the area, not in the area of Fishers. They're not from here. They're not residents. They're from all over that are attracted to the mosque in general. And so this is a continuation of those things. And any questions before we move into any kind of conversation about these permits is what you're on. Any questions about what the city has done, what the police department has done to try to get this thing under control for the last couple of years before we get into where we feel we are now and why? Any questions at all?
I think the biggest thing, and maybe this is the wrong time, Chief, to ask the question. I think the biggest thing that's on folks' minds is why we weren't included. And there was a perception when we left the city meeting that this was going to be tried to be ramrodded through, and we wouldn't be part of any decision on what was going to be done as a final program.
Well, it's fair, but I think the realization that this is affecting parts of the neighborhood that we didn't anticipate. How or why you didn't get invited to the mosque meetings and community meetings before, I don't know. But I think the city has said, hang on, let's take a pause. We're only going to get back out and try to get more people into the next council meeting to speak their mind or speak their piece. So I can only apologize for the point we're at now. But I can tell you this has been a 2-year problem. And I don't think anybody was having meetings saying, man, let's leave the HOA and let's leave the association, let's leave the neighborhood out of it. We had met with residents from in there. We had talked to them. We'd been in there. We'd done enforcement in there. And so I just think it was an oversight and it wasn't anything intentional. And I hope the showing of this and the steps we're taking now, and even the process of which the permits, we've decided to slow that down on the back end once the council, and still, this is up to the council to pass. There'll be a vote done once they've heard your piece and talk. If you decide to come on Monday, the council meeting next Monday. So again, I apologize for that. It was not intentional. We solve a lot of problems in and around the city, and when you sit and try to just think of everything and everyone, sometimes you miss. And in this case, we did. Is that fair enough?
Fair enough.
Any other questions?
I guess I got some from homeowners. I don't know if you want to hear those now or not.
Yeah, if they're in relation to what we've done or what we've been working on, this is the time. I'm gonna explain the permitting process, and
Okay.
then I'll take any questions in regards to the actual permits kind of in a minute, but let's keep them separate. I
Okay.
wanna clean up how you feel and how we feel about the problem, and then move into the potential solution and why. Sounds like everybody's ready to move into the permit conversation, so let's do that now. Look, I've tried it all. We've tried to engage, we've tried to communicate, we've ticketed, we've put no parking up, we've had extra security, we've done it all. And I can't find a solution that's going to remedy what's going on in parts of your neighborhood across the street and going to continue in relation to people coming to the mosque for prayer on Friday. And there's also issues during Ramadan. The only thing that I can come up with that isn't as intrusive as putting gates on your community is to do parking permits. The reason that I want to move to parking permits is because it also remedies another problem in another part of the city that doesn't have anything to do with you guys, but we're also having a lot of issues in that area as well, where it's just problem after problem with cars parking in front of houses because parking is of issue when it comes to these businesses doing so well. So the permitting process would flow like this. If uh, in order to get your street or your area onto this to include a permit, and the permit would be given out at the police station, you would come to the police station, show your ID, and if you want 10 permits, you get 10 permits, and you go off back into your neighborhood. And I think Fridays and times would be um, homed in on. So this isn't going to be a Monday through Sunday parking permit deal. This is predominantly on Fridays and predominantly on Ramadan. And this also could apply to the Legion too, which I've had conversations with them as well. We'll circle back to the Legion here shortly because we've engaged them and we didn't know about them until the council meeting and the day of, just so you know. So the permits would go onto the car. I'm envisioning a rear view mirror tag that's removable. That's not permanent. It doesn't cause damage to the windshield. You would throw that in your car or put that on your people that are visiting, and they would be automatically excluded from any kind of patrols. But in days where the neighborhood is calling because they can't get through or emergency response can't get in because both sides are parked, we would come in there and be able to ticket any car without the pass on it or the permit on it for $150 each time. And we think that that's substantial because we've done the $25 parking thing across the street and it doesn't even hit their wallet hard enough where it influences to go park in the parking lot that they've actually created for them. So we want to make it something that they feel so they don't do it again. And then they also talk about it with the other people that go to the mosque or the Legion in this case. So they all get the word out that, hey, they're not messing around. They're hitting us with big tickets. It really, the idea is just to stop. I, I'm not going to gain anything by the money internally at the police department. I don't do business that way based upon tickets or citations or quotas. So for me, I'd rather just have them park where they're supposed to and not have to do any of this. Any questions about the permit themselves? And then I'll go into how your street would be added and or subtracted as we proceed forward.
Had a couple homeowners contact me, stating they think unlimited is unrealistic. Uh, See here to quote, potentially ask for 15 or more passes. So kind of defeats the whole purpose of passes. And basically, if that's the case, a resident who attends the mosque and lives in our neighborhood could potentially ask for 15 or whatever.
Yeah,
So
I don't
how are
know.
we going to monitor and keep that down to just people living here?
We can't. I'm not gonna, I'm trying to be realistic in the fact that maybe you're gonna have an event where you need enough passes for people to park. So I'm trying not to be so restrictive to the homeowners that it's enables them to conduct normal life. But also, I'm aware of the potential of handing passes out, and that is why, unlike you heard in the council meeting where they said, "Can you just mail it to us?" We don't want to do that. We want someone to come in. We want to ID who they are so their permits are marked. So if we have questions about use of those permits, we can engage that homeowner and ask why they're doing what they're doing on behalf of their neighbors. And if we're this aware of the problem, neighbors are going to be pretty much aware that we have someone going rogue with passes, and we can deal with that as it comes to. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But there is not a perfect solution. This is the closest I can get to where I think it would make a sense for everybody involved. So does that make sense to you?
I totally understand what you're saying. I it just kind of, from my perspective, unlimited is a lot. More restrictive would probably make people feel a little better.
Sure.
Uh,
Well, if you have, how many people are you getting to tell you? How many different households are asking about this in particular?
I've had 4 people contact me
So four households.
just since we posted this. Yes.
Well, we haven't passed anything yet. You have Councilman John DeLucia on here who will ultimately be voting on this. And the council, if you come to the meeting on Monday, you can state this, and the council will ultimately decide what is fair. So if they say five, then
Okay.
I will enforce five. If they say six, I'll enforce six. My number was somewhere on 10, just because I wanted to be somewhat. I understand people have senior parties, they have, the school year ends and they have people over, and I just didn't want to get in on that. But I really don't. The only thing I don't want is a complete misuse where people are just handing them out. That's why we will mark them with an ID of who gave them out so we can go figure out if we have any people that are just handing them out.
I like your number 10. Just for me
Well,
speaking.
But that's
Um,
fine.
and Chief, if I could, hey, Dennis, I know you didn't know I was on because you don't see, but I know Betsy Turpinning was one of those. I had a good chat with her today. It's a fair point. I think the unlimited really was more right for the homeowners to not feel like, well, I need this or I need that. And I hadn't actually even thought about that abuse, but I also think it's a very specific window and very specific geography. But it's a fair point for sure.
Yeah, I'm either way. I can tell you if I feel like it's being violated, I'll be having conversations with those households. Well, not me
Yeah,
directly, but I'll have someone go have conversations with those households if that's fair.
this is Troy. I'm Don Sussman. I just wanted to add, what we've heard is the big question is the yes, but say I only get 4, but like you said, there's a graduation, someone gets ticketed. You had talked about that briefly at the council meeting. Some of the neighbors we've talked to, what's the procedure then? How clear will it be to get the ticket undone if it was somehow, how do we prove the validity if somebody was parking, along our house or whatever?
Well, if they get a ticket, they'll have to go into court before the judge and prove the validity that they were there for a reason, right? So in a normal process, if you get an ordinance violation by the city, you go before Judge Hinkey and you state your case. Now there is a capture in between that if we were notified and I'll have a point of contact in the police department for this and it seemed valid and someone comes in and gives me their ID and says this is what happened, I can probably take care of that in a short amount of time. But in a long amount of time, if they wait and hold and just don't get to it, they probably have to go talk to the judge, to be real with you, because the process is what the process is. That court date will be set on the ordinance itself if you don't want to pay. But there'll be a couple catches. One is just to come in, ID yourself, and have a conversation with us at the police department, and there's leeway there. The second is you go in and show your ID of your household to the judge, and he's going to kick it loose, right? So you have two catch-alls, so you don't hit the fine if you're someone that's legitimately um, um, not wanting to be issued that ticket.
I think that answers a lot of what we've heard, at least.
These are ordinances.
there's I'm sorry.
These are ordinances, not infractions. So this is not going to go into county court where there's a much stricter policies behind fixing tickets or getting them taken care of. This is controlled by the city itself by our ordinances. So there's a little bit more leniency and freeway there.
For us, at least from my observations, and somebody else, please chime in if I'm missing something. The problem appears to be at our Lantern Road entrance with the mosque. And the problem appears to be at the American Legion when they have fundraisers or banquets or whatever, they clog that section up. Something fierce. Anywhere else within there, it's normal stuff that we all talk to one another and say, we're having a party or something like that. There's going to be cars parking. Uh, maybe if I have a better understanding how this works, okay? I live on North Traverse Place, not in either one of these two specific areas. Is an officer going to be patrolling down our street, or is this only going to be on a phone call saying, hey, we're having this?
You'll probably see me have actual, we have community service officers that will be engaging this problem once it comes into effect. I'll probably have them and with the backup of the officers themselves. And then it'll be a combination of unhappy residents, which you have now. You do have some unhappy homeowners in there that just isn't just off the opening. And then also, too, to this is once you start to place violations and ticket, the cars will move inward and they'll spread out. It's like water. It'll flow wherever it can naturally flow until we get it to stop. And I've been
Yeah.
directing traffic in this city for 25 years, and that statement remains true. So for me, I would rather cover down, take care of it, actively patrol it, hit it hard, and then release and get back to normal. And I think behind all this is normalcy. I do. I think once we train the issue, I think it takes care of itself. And I think you'll see us release a lot of those streets in there and not even have the permits on there at a certain point, hopefully. But the good thing is if it crops back up, we can always just go into the process, which I'll lay out for you in a minute, and we can add the street back. So streets can come off and they can go on as we need and see fit for the community.
Okay, so for the time being, if we're going to have a function and we're going to have 7 or 8 cars visiting for whatever, barbecue in the backyard, our best bet is to come down and say, I need a permit for X number and we're good to go. Do we have to have any kind of identification to get those?
Yep, because I think like the earlier conversation of misuse, I'd like to see an idea of a resident taking responsibility for 10 tags. And then
Okay,
those tags will be assigned to that resident. And then when we're going around and we see violations, I can write down the number of the tag. I can get a hold of the person that ID'd and say, you're responsible for these 10, where they at? And we can hold a homeowner accountable for violating if they do. And I hope it doesn't come to any of that. But this is me just trying to deep think the problem beyond the problem beyond the problem, because that's what I get paid to do.
that sounds reasonable. That's totally reasonable to me. The responsibility falls on me to get parking permits and give them to my guests so we don't have an issue. That
Now
makes total sense
remember,
to me.
you're talking Friday day, and your real problem is Ramadan because it gets real bad during Ramadan, and that's at night almost every night for a
Mhm.
number of days. And so we will have those times carved out each year because you don't really know Ramadan until the next year. But the Friday is really your only problem. So if you're having a barbecue at noon on Friday, you got a problem. If you're having a barbecue at 6 p.m. on Friday, you're not going to have a problem. You don't need permits.
Okay. Well, let's just not forget the Legion because it
Yeah, let's
is,
talk about the Legion. Yeah, let's talk
yeah,
about that because look, no one has ever talked to me about the Legion at all up until the day of that council meeting. I started to learn about the Legion, but you really don't start hearing about problems until you talk about problems. So the Legion has been an issue. The Legion was there. I communicated with them at the council meeting, and I've talked to them since that. They have already taken steps to notify the people that go to the Legion that they've entered into an agreement with YMCA that they're to park across the street. and they're to walk across the street, and they're to utilize that side of things. They told me, I mean, as late as last week, they want to be good neighbors, and they know it, they let it get out of hand, and they've been working to reel it back in already. I think that in the interim, I think we should add a couple of those streets just in the interim, because we'll go through the initial Board of Works, the process. The roads won't even be talked about. The streets won't even be talked about at council. We'll go into Board of Works, and we'll hold another meeting and talk about why roads should come off or come on. And that way, if you live in a certain street and you're not experiencing anything, you can say, Chief Gephardt, when's the next Board of Works? I want to come talk. You can talk to the board, which consists of the mayor and a couple others, and say, look, we've had no problems on our street. We want you to remove our street from this. And they'll remove your street, and off you go.
We had a homeowner ask about recreational vehicles, and I know
Sure.
there's one that occasionally shows up by the Legion. And what we've allowed our folks to do is if they're getting ready to go out, they bring their boat or their travel trailer home, they prep it, they leave. When they come back, they unload it, clean it up, and this usually results in an overnight thing. Are we going to have a pass for them? Because it could definitely fall in some of these timeframes. What would the
Yeah,
best,
I just hang a permit on the RV and you're fine.
okay,
That's not an issue. And most HOAs allow, up to a week for RVs to sit and prep or whatever. There's different rules for different HOAs.
Sure,
I don't
sure,
understand.
sure.
I don't understand them all, but generally a boat or an RV can allow to be near a house for a portion of time and then move. And this would fall into that in a nicely, just by placing the tag somewhere on whatever vehicle it is, whether it be a boat, whether it be an RV, whether it be a spaceship, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, just a little bit off track with that. Does a boat or a camper have to be connected to the vehicle, or can it sit on its own on the side of the road with no car connected?
We're not going to go looking for
No, it's a question.
I've seen it both ways. I've seen a boat solo and I've seen a boat connected. I don't think we make a difference. Usually when we get the
Okay.
call, they say this boat's been sitting for 3 weeks, come deal with this boat. I have a funny story. I was cleaning out my boat the other day, and I don't know why I have a tire gauge in my boat, and I don't know why I have a tire gauge in my boat, because you never check the tires of a boat. That's a true story. I told my wife, I don't know why we have a tire gauge in here. But anyway, that's a side note. But um, just if a boat's out too long in the HOA and you need us to check it, that's one of those falls under your HOA rules, and we'll be happy to do that. So it's no problem.
I was told at one point that you had to be physically connected to the boat or trailer, and that's not true, correct?
I don't know what your HOA bylaws are and what they say in there. I know that I can tell you as a patrol officer, when I passed a boat that was not connected, unless an HOA called me, I didn't make a difference in it. But if
Okay,
an HOA
that
called
answers
me,
my question.
if the HOA called me there and said this boat's a problem, I would run the boat and try to figure out
Right.
who owned it and why it was there.
Okay. Now, I didn't know if the city had an ordinance or not. That's what I was verifying.
If
Thank you
it
for that.
does, I have no clue. But I'll be more than happy to look that up for you. But it's been a long time since
That's
I've done
fair.
since I've done boat patrols. It's been a minute.
Yes.
Chief, I got a question for you, Joe Schmies. Has there been any discussion about like a permanent permit for like a permanent resident, and then like they apply for visitors? So you'd almost have two. So because then like a visitor pass could be, dated for up to like 3 days or something like that.
No, because it just gets real cumbersome for my front end staff, and I'm not looking for to complicate the process extraordinarily. I'm part of the city. I think handing 10 out to a homeowner and saying, hey, handle this is sufficient enough. If you're getting into that, you're more regulating on our side where we got to write dates and times on permits. And I think it becomes more cumbersome of an issue. I'd rather just leave it to the homeowner to handle it and deal with it for us.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Would we be responsible for posting signs, I guess, the streets that we're going to restrict?
No,
Where they
I
need-
would be. I would be.
Okay.
I'm
Thanks.
gonna make them as big and ugly. I'm just kidding. I'm gonna make them as nice as possible for your neighborhood. I promise.
Okay.
It is Monday night, so I'm in a light mood. Please, enjoy my dry humor on Monday night, please.
Can I request neon?
Yeah.
Neon, right? Neon. Yes, we're open. No, we're closed signs. I think your neighborhood will love that. And be careful. I just might do it. The mood I'm in right now. No, we think at the entrances, something should go up to notify them visually, and then but they'll pass that, right? It's enforcement that's going to get the adherence. It's not the sign, but the sign is a nice gesture of, hey, we're about to ticket you. And then we can point it out on the way out, or that's more for the judge when the judge says there's a sign posted at the front of the entrance, and the person who's not from the neighborhood will never even notice that. In my years of law enforcement, those are generally driven right by, but they're nice to have when it's court time.
I don't know who I should ask this of John or you, chief, but my understanding is the city council is going to vote on approving this ordinance. So then it can go to the Board of Public Works and then they will design how it's going to be implemented, correct?
You know, a lot of that process is already being laid out, because the Board of Works will mere be the gateway of what streets are added. The council will decide, after hearing from their constituents, whether or not this is something they want to entertain by having a vote on. I hope to have that vote on Monday, but they'll open up the floor to hear it, and they'll make that decision. And sometimes they may not even vote on a Monday. And John, if I'm speaking out of terms, this is your wheel. They may decide to do another hearing if there's a lot of conflicts and issues. But if it seems like people are appeased and there's enough there and we can get through it and get to doing it, then they'll vote on it on Monday.
What would the
Yeah,
possible?
and I agree, Dennis, if you want me to chime in, but yeah, Chief is correct. And really, that's kind of why we're here. I think there's a lot of support for this, and this is not like specifically our streets. It's just authorizing the things to be done. But I knew there were just questions and people had meant to just to give some time to do all of this. So yeah, please come to the meeting or share feedback with me or others. And yeah, we're happy to hear about it.
From my aspect, I'm in favor of the program. It's just, how's it going to be implemented? Are we going to have any say in how it's going to be implemented or anything like that? We would like to be a part of it since
Yeah, I
we
think-
are directly affected.
Dennis, that's absolutely the goal. And the goal will be, the reason it's going to go down to the Board of Works is so we don't have to wait for the council to regather each time. The Board of Works meetings are more often. And so they're chaired by 3 people, and you'll come in and you can tell them directly yourself, hey, I want my street added, I want my street subtracted. And it leaves a lot of control to the community, the HOA, to work and see. We wanted to make it as fluid as possible because we know that you'll be the best thermometer of whether your street needs to be on there or not. It won't be us. And so we want, after this, if the council passes this, we'll set a Board of Works meeting for this agenda, which will be publicized. You guys will know it. And you can come to the Board of Works when we talk about what streets and when and how we're going to light this thing up. And you'll be a part of that day, or invited to speak or talk.
That answers my question. Thank you.
No problem. Anything else?
I just want to say thank you very much for trying to think of every possible issue or problem and trying to work this out in all areas of the city.
I was just going to add, it's kind of the norm for everything all the time. It's this way. So you're going to make a large percentage of people happy. You're going to make a percentage of people not happy, depending on how we move. But we do try to be methodical. And like I said in the beginning, it was no intention to leave anybody out of it. We thought we were covering down. Sometimes you just don't think of all the ins and outs. And HOA is, when you guys showed up on that, I was like, duh, we should have done that. I should have thought of that better. We won't miss in the next neighborhood. How's that? We'll right the wrong in the next conflict or issue, okay?
Just one side note, Chief, are you aware of the HOA Alliance?
Yeah, I speak at it. I'm there
That might
generally
be-
and yeah.
That might be a good organization on something like this to work with also.
Not really.
No?
And well, the honest behind it is we're not really looking to make this possible for every problem that arises in every neighborhood. We're trying to just deal with these business issues, but there's other neighborhoods that'll want parking permits for different reasons, and we weren't really wanting to invite that into the conversation. If we
Okay.
see that there's an issue and you see that there's an issue and we agree that we need to tackle the issue, I'm good. But you start publicizing to every neighborhood that this is out there, you're going to have people that just don't want people in their neighborhood, period. And I think that's something we didn't want to invite in. And that may be a big reason why we missed on the HOAs. We're not looking to make this a flat thing for 105,000 residences, okay? But we recognize that you need to be in peace. And look, people tramping through the yards, that's just not forgivable. We need to deal with that. And when I started hearing about that, I knew we needed to turn the corner on asking for people's compliance and start hitting them with fines. Because that's what you have, people walking through yards and putting trash in yards and doing stuff. So that's got to stop,
Logic makes sense.
right? Yeah, push me into this after 2 years of battle. We're good. Let's do it.
Okay.
Just remember, I'm going to close with this. I really appreciate your time. Thank you, Councilman DeLucia, for taking your time to be here tonight as well. I appreciate it. This will be fluid. Remember, Monday's the night. If you have something to say to the council, they'll vote. And then it goes to Board of Works for the streets and the application of. So we're probably about a month and a half away from anything even happening. But we're going to make sure that we try to inform you accordingly, okay?
When you say Monday's the night, what is the date of the council meeting?
That's a good one, Dennis, because you don't know what Monday I'm talking about, right? It is
No,
the
sir.
21st is the council meeting. That's the Monday.
21st. Okay, thank
I
you.
appreciate your thoroughness there.
Well, from my position, and I think I can speak for the board, we really appreciate you taking the time. We recognize it's a major problem and it doesn't have a real easy solution. This looks like a good way of addressing it, and hopefully few months down the road, once it gets started, it just kind of all goes away and it's not a problem at all.
Well, and thank you. That's the point of the Board of Works, is that it can eventually just evaporate without having to go through this particular process. We can just pull the streets off and go on with life. And if you need it down the road, it'll be there in ordinance. That's the point.
Yep. Okay.
I'll see you guys Monday, maybe. We'll see.
Oh, with bells on.
Okay, same. Good night,
Thank
everyone,
you.
okay? Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Chief. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Thanks, Samantha.
Thank you.